All right, up next, ready to share his vision on the future of military healthcare and how we can all use our shared commitment to those we serve to create a military health system capable of meeting the challenges of tomorrow. We have our conference host, Dr. Stephen Ferrara. Dr. Ferrara is currently serving as the Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs. Dr. Ferrara is an experienced clinician, combat veteran, educator, and healthcare leader. In his current role, he is the Principal Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the Undersecretary of Personnel and Readiness on all Department of Defense health and force health protection policies, programs, and activities. So please welcome Dr. Stephen Ferrara.
Right. Well, good morning, everybody. It is incredibly great to be here. And first and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Hurst for joining us in Cleveland. That was an incredibly motivating and I know heartfelt opening plenary, and so we're all very grateful for that. And I want to tell everyone, you know, I got to meet Mr. Hurst probably, it's almost 100 days, 99 days, 100 days ago on January 20th when we swore in together. And he's been an absolutely, I'm not saying this just because he's here, anyone would know this. He's been an absolutely tremendous partner. Everything he just said, I know, he means and he executes on. He has been a tremendous advocate for the military health system and for all the work that everyone here does. So we are very fortunate to have Mr. Hurst in this role, as you probably can gather from his remarks. I also want to thank Caitlin and the scores of other people who worked so hard on putting this conference together. It takes thousands of hours on the count of the planners, the presenters, to make this week a success, and so that everybody here can have the opportunity to be more prepared to meet our mission. It really is an honor and a privilege to host this year's conference. This venue is amazing. Again, I commend the people who selected it and who found this. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for us to all basically network, get to meet new people, and also hear the content. We have, as Commander Nichols said, the theme this year is the future of military medicine: integrated, innovative, ready. And I can't think of a theme that is more appropriate to meet the moment we're in right now. The educational tracks, when we look at them, there's workforce well-being, education, and training. That's where we really look at what are we doing to support, grow, sustain, and help our workforce, our most important, our human capital, our most important members of our team. Modernization, digital innovation, two important tracks we touched on a little bit in the last Q&A session. So again, how are we, whether it's from MHS Genesis, whether it's from technological innovations that are going to make us better on the battlefield, AI-enabled solutions, whether it's things in how our patients are interacting with us through patient portals and other things, those sorts of efforts that we're doing here in the military health system to modernize and bring the digital innovation to the forefront. Operational medicine and interoperability. Again, from the MTF to force generation platforms, to the battlefield, to our civilian military partnerships, to our work with the VA, I can't think of any time that it could be more important for us to increase our fluency in being able to work with our partners, whether it's our sister services or other government agencies. We're going to have a policy and resources and a stabilization track. Again, Mr. Hurst talked about that. How can we rethink the way we work, the way we're organized, the way we manage, the way we're resourced, to not only economize but amplify our resources so that we can not only stabilize but we can strengthen our system. And then, of course, public health, which is really the mother of modern medicine and the cornerstone of military health and population health. It's where force health protection begins. It's how we ensure we have a medically ready force so that there's always guns in the fight. So I encourage everyone to really explore these tracks outside of your area of expertise. Broaden, this is a great opportunity to increase your breadth, see what other folks in the military health system do. One of the greatest parts about this job is I have a vantage point to see all the amazing work that people do across our entire enterprise. It never ceases to astound me, to amaze me, and to inspire me at all the great work that's done. And so I promise, again, go to a different educational track and you won't be disappointed. For many of you, if you haven't had the opportunity to meet me, I appreciate the introduction, but I think it's important. I think relationships are the pathway to progress. And so it's important for me to share a little bit about my background, and because I think when you understand a little bit about a person and the texture of things, you understand how they see the world, their decision-making mantra, the matrix, and so I think that's going to be really valuable. As was mentioned, I'm a pediatric interventional radiologist. I remain clinically active. I joined the military when the first Gulf War broke out, like a lot of people. The 9/11 was a thing for a lot of people, especially a little bit earlier generation. I'm a military spouse. My wife is a pediatric nephrologist on active duty in the Navy, working at Walter Reed. We met in medical school at USU. We had the wonderful experience that I think, again, is something that many of us probably share and that's unique to our system, where I had med school classmates, hospital colleagues, and people I consider friends to bring our children into the world at MTFs, which again I think is a very unique, and treasured memory and relationship. I retired from the Navy about 10 years ago after 25 years of service, but it was what a fulfilling and really diverse career. I'd say it was highlighted by my 4 deployments. I had the opportunity to deploy with the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps. I did humanitarian assistance, disaster relief, combat, diplomatic missions across the whole set of things we do and other things that are yet to come. Since I left the military, and a little time, I worked on Capitol Hill, I've worked in private practice, and I've worked in other government agencies. So I bring all that background to this role, but I will say that it's an honor of a lifetime to be in this position, because the MHS is really my home and it's my North Star. So I'm extremely grateful to be here. As a political leader of the MHS, I have the opportunity to be the conduit for you, to be your voice, to talk to Mr. Hurst, to talk to the Secretary, to talk to Capitol Hill, and share what all the great things you're doing, what your barriers are, what your challenges are. We just talked about, hopefully we're going to get, the $2 billion that they're talking about putting back to the DHP. That's a direct result of the work of, going to the Hill and telling them some of the facilities challenges we had. We went, we heard you, we went. I saw General Tahan, we were there in January, and we talked about what we were trying to do to help restore it. I know Walter Reed's not the only one. There's facilities challenges across the enterprise. That's one of the reasons why I've been really barnstorming the enterprise over the past 100 days, because for me, it's incredibly important to get out and meet as many of you as possible. And when I've gone to these places, what you've done is you've provided, the depth to otherwise shallow limitations that are otherwise found in a PowerPoint slide or an Excel spreadsheet or an info paper. When you go and meet the people doing the work, it puts an incredibly different, point on things. I've been able to come back and we, heard from you and been able to actually put things directly into action. Decisions we make every week at the SMAC and other places are directly informed by the input that I receive from meeting you all. I plan to continue to do that. It's not only one of the most valuable sources of information and input I have, but it's also one of the most uplifting and inspiring things I do. A few moments ago I mentioned how this year's theme really meets the moment. And so what did I mean? What kind of moment are we in? And I promise, Mr. Hurst and I didn't coordinate on this, but I think it just, again, the fact that we have some of the similar talking points reinforces the point. I describe the moment we're in as combustible. There's a lot of potential energy that just hasn't been actuated yet. The geopolitical environment is incredibly challenging. The margin between calm and chaos is quite thin. While we're at relative peace, the China threat is real, the Iran threat is real, the North Korea threat is real, the Russia threat is real, non-state actor threats are real. Biohazard, biosurveillance, we just got through a pandemic. All those threats are incredibly real. And if and when one of those things occurs, the country looks to the military, and it looks to the military health system to keep them safe. And so we have to be ready to meet that, to basically meet that call. But it's also important to know that it's not simply the adversarial threats that make things dangerous. In a paradoxical way, the peace makes things dangerous as well. Churchill said this in 1946. He said, "It is in the years of peace that wars are prevented, and that those foundations are laid upon which the noble structures of the future can be built. But peace will not be preserved without the virtues that make victory possible in war. Peace will not be preserved by pious sentiments expressed in terms of platitudes or by official grimaces and diplomatic correctitude. It will not be preserved by casting aside in dangerous years the panoply of warlike strength." So he's a man who knew something about this, the risk of complacency living through the 1930s and the risk of not being prepared. And so I think we should all look at that as a clarion call. The concept of this isn't foreign or unknown to us. We even have an eponym for it, the Walker Dip. Another wise British gentleman, Vice Admiral Walker, who was the Surgeon General of the UK Armed Forces, coined that term. He looked back at the American experience going all the way back to the Civil War and noted that our medical readiness and our battlefield outcomes were always lagging in the early phases of conflict due to falling weak and atrophying our skills after the previous war. So if being forewarned is forearmed, then what are we supposed to do? So how do we get after this? Well, you've heard, and I appreciate Commander Nichols bringing this up. I think we have to focus on those three priorities that I like to talk about, the three S's: support, sustain, and strengthen. We have to support the warfighter, we have to sustain our skills, and we have to strengthen our chain. If we do those things, we will beat the Walker Dip. I am very confident of that. And beating the Walker Dip saves lives. The next war will not be like the last war. We're going to have to learn. We're going to have to adjust and to adapt. But the length of that learning curve and how long it takes us to get up to be as good as we can be, there's excess morbidity and excess mortality. Those are lost servicemen and women. There's many great healthcare systems in America, but we are the only American healthcare system that goes to war. We're here in a city with one of the best healthcare systems in America, the Cleveland Clinic. I love our partnership with the Cleveland Clinic. Dr. Steele is going to talk to us on Thursday, 4-time combat surgeon, Army surgeon. We're blessed to have him be able to come speak with us. But at the end of the day, the Cleveland Clinic will not go to war. The VA will not go to war. Only we can go to war. So it's incumbent on us. It's a moral imperative for us to be as prepared as possible to do that. So how are we going to do these things? How are we going to support the warfighter? Well, I'd say we can support the warfighter on the home front during peacetime by ensuring that they're fit to fight. We do that by ensuring they have access to care. We just heard about that in the last plenary. Making sure that we can get those warfighters into our MTFs. If they need orthopedic surgery, that they can get the surgery that they can get all the care they need so they can get seen, diagnosed, treated, and recovered and get back in the fight. We have to do it by also making sure all our research is going so that we can be looking at systems so that for that next battlefield, all the folks that are doing research, whether it's medical research on therapies, diagnostics, or technical solutions, AI-enabled things, our BAT-Doc, other things we're doing to help empower the warfighter, things we do during peacetime to be more ready during wartime. We're going to support the warfighter downrange by basically being at the top of our game. From force health protection and the battlefield, fending off disease and non-battle injury so that we can keep guns in the fight, to treating combat wounds, to requiring, training people to be able to do prolonged field care skills, and developing systems that we haven't had to use in prior conflicts. Also, how are we going to be able to execute safe medevac by land, by sea, by air? Being able to do all those things on the battlefield is how we support the warfighter. It's by growing our Role 4 capability here at home, by making sure our combat casualty hospitals are strong and robust and able to take patients, by having partners like the VA or through the NDMS system, so that when the casualties come back, they can come back and be recovered and rehabilitated. We're going to sustain our skills by increasing our volume and our acuity at the MTFs. We're going to do this by driving as much activity, as much healthcare as possible back into the MTFs. We're going to increase our capacity. We're going to allocate personnel so that we have the resources, we have the manpower we need at the MTFs to be able to provide that care and take care of have the right number and the right mix of personnel to take care of sick patients. We're currently rolling out new methods to increase our revenue so that we can have the resources we need to be able to do that work. We're also currently forging new partnerships, both government and civilian military partnerships, to basically be able to bring in more patients, maximize leverage of our networks, of our TRICARE, and everything in our communities to be able to make sure that we're getting as many patients as possible into the MTFs and our people are as trained as possible. We know that when we are doing those things, when we're doing a lot of care and it's a lot of high quality care, our retention is better, we keep people in the force, and it just makes us stronger. We strengthen our chain by feeding that fourth generation platform. Our MTFs are where we train thousands of early and mid-career healthcare professionals every year, officers and enlisted. And when our patient volumes are high, our training pipelines thrive. And when we do all these things, we leave the MHS better than we found it. We leave the next generation of warfighters in skilled and secure hands. Those future generations are also going to be the ones that take care of our children and our grandchildren when they go out in uniform. And they're also, for many of us, there are healthcare benefit. As we retire, the people, when we strengthen our chain, they're the ones that are going to be taking care of us. We're going to be able to do these things more effectively by acknowledging that healthcare is local, diffusing more authority to network and MTF directors instead of running everything from headquarters. We're going to be by doing that, we're going to be more agile, we'll be more innovative. When leaders are free to lead and animal spirits are unleashed, great ideas will rise to the top. They're going to spread across the enterprise. If you're not making mistakes from time to time, you're probably playing it too safe. I want to encourage leaders to feel empowered to do those things, to be able to get out there. I mean, everywhere you go, all you hear is great ideas, and we need to make sure that people out there at the deck plate are able to feel empowered to do those things. And while we work to grow our resources in a self-sufficient manner by cultivating underutilized funding pathways and improving recruitment and retention, we also have to continue to show our value in the building. Our share of the defense budget is a bit more than $61 billion, about 7% of the Pentagon's top-line budget. And that's a lot of money, and it is. But as a percent of the Pentagon's budget and in inflation-adjusted terms, it's been decreased. So how do we compete to get the share back above 8% where it used to be? Well, we show how we support warfighting, how we improve lethality, and how we fortify the human as a weapons system, how we keep guns in the fight. When I was a first-year medical student, we had an amazing professor, Colonel Robert Joy. He taught military medical history, and he taught it on Friday afternoons. And you know it was a great lecture series because you'd still pack the house on a Friday afternoon for a curriculum of military medical history. It always began with he'd play this period-appropriate music that was appropriate to the era. And then he would regale us with these vignettes about how military medicine played a role in great power conflicts throughout history. I've never forgotten the story of Field Marshal William Slim. He commanded the Burmese campaign in World War II. He talked about it in his memoir, Defeat into Victory. And one of the big keys he took was the role of preventive medicine and hygiene, and actually also what Mr. Hurst talked about, distribution of authority to his company-grade officers and to his line units to basically turn that war completely where the British had been losing in Burma for years and into victory. Before he enforced public health standards, he was losing 320 out of every 1,000 troops to malaria. Once he enforced Atabrine, it went from 320 to 20. So 32% disease non-battle injury from malaria alone to 2%. It completely turned the tide of the war. Those are the kind of things that we do. We empower warfighters to take risks that they otherwise wouldn't. They're secure in the knowledge that should they become injured, that we'll be there to save their life. We've learned from the Ukraine and the Israel experience that the medical landscape of the next battlefield is going to be more difficult. It's going to be more denied than anything we've ever experienced. The Indo-Pacific will compound those challenges by the tyranny of distance. The golden hour will be non-existent. Rapid aeromedical evacuation, likely non-existent. Some of the wounded will require prolonged field care. Others, we will treat and rehabilitate and return to the fight, something we didn't do in the last set of wars. And that's going to be the battlefield of the future. So again, when I have to talk about how we're going to get the resources in the building, and when challenged with the question of how do we earn our share of the defense budget, how do we support lethality, my answer is this. When the soldier goes into battle carrying the sword of freedom, we are their sword, we are their armor, and we are their shield. And I think that's a really important thing to be able to remember. So I'm going to stop there, and I also want to take questions. Thank you.
Great questions online. Thank you. And thanks for the lights. Okay, so we'll start with this one, sir, and I'm loving these questions that are coming in. So first, many MTFs are outpatient only. Simulated training helps maintain competency, but is inadequate to maintain full scope physician privileges. How can we better balance MTF demand and full scope readiness when the next war may require a deeper bench?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the force generation and skill sustainment both question. Again, I think simulation has been an absolutely fabulous thing. It's a great way that's leveraged technology to help us be able to do things, that we wouldn't otherwise get to do. It actually also helps us be able to practice scenarios that you just even wouldn't encounter in a typical practice, even at busy trauma centers. So it absolutely has a role, but there's still no substitute for direct patient care. I think, when the person's asked, well, we have outpatient places, so how are you going to get those other reps? That's where we have to be really, really innovative and really creative and really thoughtful about how we rotate our people around, how we make sure that we're doing really true workforce management. That if you are in a specialty, if what you do, your skill set, whether you're a surgical tech or whether you're a logistician that takes care of operating rooms, that you are at places that are able to keep you on those skills. It's really complicated. I don't deny that it is. But those are the types of things. How we do our human capital management is really, it's a challenge, but I think we have technological opportunities to help with that. I think we have systems and programs to help be able to look at those things. What we've done with KSAs over the last decade, I think is incredibly valuable. Sometimes we're not always getting, data that we like, but at least we'll be able to make data-informed decisions. So we need to do that more, and we need to say, and again, most importantly, we need to have centers where people can get those reps in those sets. And that's what we're trying to do. And then how we get those people there is going to be important. So it's a both. We still need simulation, but we fundamentally need more patients.
Thank you, sir. And we'll go to this one next, and then I'll go to her. So the next question is, what do you see as the future of MHS Genesis and how the DoD works with the VA?
Yeah, so we're at I think an important time in MHS Genesis, fully deployed, getting ready for the next iteration. We've been meeting with Oracle to work on that. I'm really hopeful, and again, it always comes down to resources. You know, we got a pretty thin version of MHS Genesis, so we're looking for resources to try to have more bells and whistles. And I know I'm looking at Dr. Weber, who I know is working hard on that. Resources are hard, but we know that it's important, and we know that things like ambient dictation are really important to people. You know, number one, it's going to improve people's quality, you know, our practitioners' quality of life because of the ability to do that, so that they're not having to chart when they get home. You know, retention is a huge problem for us, frankly. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but that's, I mentioned to you, you know, my wife is a clinically active military physician. For the last decade, it's a routine for us. We have dinner, and then she spends 3 hours on her laptop writing her notes. That's pretty normal. And so that's not really sustainable, it's not scalable. So we have to do better with the electronic health record so our folks don't have to do those things. So we'll be working with Oracle to do that. How we do it with the VA, I'm also optimistic. The VA has not been aggressive in rolling out their electronic health record. They need to be more aggressive. I think with the new administration, Secretary Collins at the VA is pushing on the VA to be more forward-leaning and to push into these things more. We're certainly encouraging that as we form more partnerships to do more patient care, bi-directional care with, you know, patients being seen at both types of facilities. That becomes even more important. So we're working with them. We actually worked with DOJ last week. We talked about how to utilize DOJ to help us. I met with the DOJ folks and shared with them that, you know, that we spend a lot of money amongst the systems scanning paper to transition from our health record to their health record. So that's money to which they're going to get to the electronic health record eventually anyway. The sooner they do that, we save those. First, we're not doing that work. Second of all, it just makes more sense. I talked about this yesterday when I was at Air Force Day. Won't it be great, the idea that a person could go to boot camp and for the rest of their life they'd have one continuous health record? I think it's common sense to everyone. We have to get the political will to push the VA to do that, and then it'll just facilitate a lot of other initiatives we're doing.
Great, thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Commander Jackie Clare. I'm an internal medicine physician currently at Naval Medical Research Command. One thing that I'm curious about is, do you foresee any reduction in jobs or tasks for military health system with a focus of increasing those patient numbers and acuity? We can do many things poorly or a few things really well.
Yeah, that's a great question because I think I kind of look at it, some of the ways I describe our system right now is we're somewhat systemically anemic, where we've spread, you know, the peanut butter so thin across so many places that everyone is struggling to succeed. So specifically, what we're trying to do is look again at that as how do we get the resources to where there's maybe there's 6 to 10, for example, places where we really are going to, you know, consolidate our resources to be able to really do high-level, full-scope work. And then at the other places, we want to set people up to succeed to make sure if it's primary care for active duty and family members, that's what they're doing and they can do it really well. But not ask people to do, you know, medical subspecialty care at a place that's one deep but doesn't have the nurse or doesn't have the, you know, the scheduling, you know, admin person. That's not sustainable. So the idea is to put folks where it makes sense and fortify those places and make those, and that's back to the first question of then we need to be continuing with skill sustainment and force generation to make sure everybody has an opportunity to get those reps.
Thank you. There are a lot of questions about budget.
Okay.
So I'll take one of them here. How can military health system seniors whose TRICARE for Life benefit often provides civilian care with no cost share required be reattracted to MTFs?
So how do we get more of the TRICARE for
Life
Lives in? Yeah. So I think there's a lot of people out there that they want to come to the MTF. We know that. A lot of us, a lot of our seniors, the military family it's important to them. Culturally, it's important to them. They know the care is great. Again, Mr. Hurst talked about his experience from his childhood, his adolescence and on. And it is important. I think when we are able to invite those folks back in, a lot of them will want to come. Because, and especially if we can provide the care, and we're not going to require a copay from us either for those folks, they can do that. It's a great opportunity. I was talking about funding streams. That's a great opportunity for us to not only increase our patient volume, it increases our patient acuity and complexity by having more seniors, but it also provides us through the MERCAF fund. We actually bring in like billions of dollars a year from that when we do it. And that's back to the earlier question. But before we embark upon that, we have to do it smartly. We have to do it at places that can take care of those patients, that can take care of high acuity elderly patients. And so it's not going to be everywhere. But where we do it wisely, and we bring those folks in. So the DHA has been working on, they've looked at where are those patient centers, where are those MTFs that can manage that, and where does it make sense? Where is there opportunity? And that's how we're going to be able to do that. So I'm actually very excited about this opportunity. I think the patients will be too. I think our providers will be as well.
That was perfect, sir. So you answered a few other questions that were talking about revenue generation, so good. All right. Each year, the pendulum swings from pushing care out to the network to bringing all the care back to the MTF. How do you plan to have that be stable for the future and not keep flipping back and forth?
Yeah, that is, that has been the story of, I don't know, for me, roughly 35 years affiliated with this system. We've seen that. Sometimes it's related to war, and I think with war, when that happens, we have, again, our primary mission is to support the warfighter downrange, and that's where we have the network to help us. That's why one of the main reasons we have a TRICARE network for that, to help be our backstop. But the other thing, again, when we're looking at some of these partnerships, building these relationships with whether it's the Veterans Administration, whether it's university hospitals, to be able to help us be more like a university system where there's an interoperability between these partners so that when people go downrange, we don't have this drop-off in capacity. And then all of a sudden we have to have this constant whipsawing and pushing patients out and then trying to reattract them and push patients out. Because patients, once bitten, twice shy, they'll come back from time to time, but after a while, they don't trust us. So we have a long way to go to re-earn that trust because we've done that. And so that's going to take a charm offensive. We're going to have to continue to show them, and then we're going to have to back it up. We have talked about changing how we move people around. We move people around a lot. That's, again, not always logical. It's not always in our best interest. We take, people that we don't have a lot of depth of that offer a particular kind of skill set that are exactly where they need to be, and then we move them somewhere else, and then we lose an entire capability somewhere because we moved a key person or two. And so we're looking at, is that really necessary? Do we really have to be doing that? I think the answer is no. So again, those are the ways I think we're going to be able to, but we're going to have to earn that trust, and it's going to take time because people have been burned.
Thank you, sir. Speaking of moving people around, what efforts are being considered to improve human capital distribution between the services and DHA, specifically increasing comfortability with placing military across service lines?
So again, interoperability, I think our ability, and we see it at a lot of places, more and more places we're working shoulder to shoulder with folks that wear a different color uniform than us, which I think is a good thing. I think when we talk about, if we have to fight in the Indo-Pacific, again, we're going to require all hands. It's going to be Air Force, Navy, Army, all working together. So I think those opportunities for us to get to, I talked about at the beginning, one of those educational tracks being interoperability, that fluency in how other services do stuff is really important. The service culture is important. I'm proud that I was in the Navy. I love the Navy traditions. I love the things about the Navy. And I know my Army and my Air Force colleagues and Space Force colleagues feel the same way about their services. I don't want to take any of that away. There's a lot of virtue in those things. But some of the things we do, the ability to bring the best of our respective cultures together is important. I think it will help if we can get onto a common operating picture. The services, we count people differently, and some of it comes from big Navy or big Army or big Air Force. The way we count people, the way we assign people, it makes it challenging to compare apples to apples. So then when we're rolling out, human capital management plans, it's confusing at best, and it's counterproductive at worst because we don't count people the same. So to the extent that we can do that and we can start to account for our folks similarly so that we can be open to that and and there's a lot of trust in that. I'm working closely with the Surgeons General, with the DHA, with the Joint Staff Surgeon, to be able to come together and really try to build trust that we're not trying to undermine anybody's service, not trying to take anybody's people, not trying to corrode any of the services. We're trying to make us all better. And again, resources are short, and so when people see resources maybe going to an MTF that flies a different flag, that's a source of concern. But again, that's where trust has to come in, and we have to just show each other that those people aren't there forever, and it's all part to continue to make sure we're sustaining our skills and generating our force.
Thank you, sir. All right, I think they've given up on the microphones, so I'll keep asking questions here. I'm going to bridge these two together because they're related. So the topic of medical deserts and OCONUS care overseas, specifically talking about the MTFs in the Pacific being stagnant in the growth of resources and manning allocations despite their respective wings or garrisons' mission growth. So are there any plans to bolster resources and manpower in the Pacific, Alaska, some of those remote geographic locations?
Yeah, I think the answer to that, it's not very satisfying to whoever answered the question, probably the audience, but I think the answer has to be it depends. I think there are areas, and a lot of this flows from our bigger service components of where strategies and so forth are pivoting for how we're going to support our medical needs there. So I was just in Guam 2 weeks ago, and I was at the Navy Hospital, and I was at Andersen Air Force Base. And a lot of talk, and we're trying to appropriately staff the medical capability, but it's not easy because the growth of the Marine Corps there has been a moving target for like 20 years. I mean, I was in Guam in 2007, and they were saying, oh, the Marines are coming to Guam, imminently. And that was 18 years ago. And so that continues to cycle. So we know that when we look at those things of, how do we build for the care and the needs, it's a challenge. I think we have to make some, 80% guesses on things. And then the key is, and one of the things, I tried to talk about in my remarks is the ability to be agile. And that's where I think we bridge the gap, because we can say, we have this plan and this is what we do, but then our ability to adjust and our ability to say, okay, with the best information available at the time we had it, we did this. And now if that's not meeting the need, how do we get after that? And again, I think Guam has done a great job. They were able to get neonatologists out there. Because to support the families. And it wasn't easy, and I know how many people worked on getting that done, but it helped, support that mission. But if you had asked somebody 5 years ago, should you have had neonatologists in Guam, they might not have thought that made a lot of sense, but it is the right thing for now, but it might not be the right thing in 5 years. So we just have to keep looking at things and reevaluating.
All right, thank you, sir. And we've got time for one more question.
Sure.
So as we look at reshaping the workforce and resources, is there consideration at evaluating our current pay structure, ensuring competitive salaries of our GS positions so we attract and retain needed capabilities in the military health system?
Yeah, that's important. So we do have, we look at things like Title 38, which is the opportunity for us to get some more authority, some more levers to recruit, retain, by not only pay being one of the main factors, but other things that Title 38 provides. So it's a toolbox. I look at Title 38 as a toolbox where it makes sense, where pay isn't competitive. Then maybe that's the right thing to do. But there's other situations where, maybe we're not filling, but it's not because of pay. And if we give everybody a raise to just say we're going to give everybody Title 38, we just deplete our resources. So again, that's why I look at healthcare as very local. And so when relying on MTF commanders, network directors, to be able to say, what is the situation at your MTF? What is the situation in your network? To be able to say which Title 38 levers would help you. We absolutely want to leverage those. We also know that we compete sometimes against the VA. Part of the reason we're trying to do some of the work we're doing with the VA is because when we share the community, we're literally competing for the same workforce. There's already a shortage of healthcare professionals in America. That's a bigger problem. But then we compete with each other for it. So how do we get out of that? How do we get out of our own way in that way? And how do we say, hey, if there's only this many of this type of skill set, maybe one of us should have it and the patients could be seen at both places if it's something unique. It's a spine surgeon or it's something that is otherwise hard to get because you're not going to find two. So I think those are the things we're doing, but we are actively looking at those. I just got a great brief about middle last week from Ms. English just about this very topic. So those are absolute areas that we're trying to leverage.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Ferrara, for ensuring that we could all gather here today.